from Julian Assange, and he knew all about this. But he's been put under such a gag right now. He can't say anything political. So I was unable to even get a statement. I went down to D.C. last week with the express purpose of letting Adam Schiff know that if he requested it, a visit with Julian Assange, it would be granted. That was it. And I came back and I did the Ari Melber show, and he knew that I was down there, and he says to me, well, Mr. Credico, you finally relented and you testified in front of Mr. Schiff. I said, wait a second, that's not why I went down there. I had to tell him the truth. I was trying to suppress that, not say anything about this meeting. But he found out about it, and I said, that's not, I didn't go to testify. I can tell you that. I said to them, I told Schiff to just get away from this Russiagate deal. Deal with the economy, deal with housing, deal with education, deal with the criminal justice system. Why are you wasting? The Democrats are going to lose this election. This is the only play they got. They're down at the 5-yard line. They could pick up 100 seats, but they keep running the same play up the middle, and they're back at the 50. You know, it's not working. They fumble the ball. What are we going to do now? Let's go up the middle of Russiagate. Oh, thrown back for a loss. All right. So, and especially this Roger Stone. Stop giving this guy any credibility. Just leave him out. Stop. He loves it. He's eating it up. He had nothing to do with this at all. He insinuated himself into the story because he's an egomaniac, and Trump had dumped him, and he wanted to get back in. So he went fishing. He came to me, and I blew him off a bunch of times. I had him on my radio show, and everybody at BAI hated that, but I had him on. But I also had Julian Assange. I also had Gary Johnson. I had a wide variety. I can't have Chris Hedges on every day. You know what I mean? I got to have a variety of guests. Or Noam Chomsky. I mean, they're on all the time. There's got to be other voices. And they're all, those guys are great. Just you know, I'm looking for variety. I'm in show business too. So, so we have more people coming in. We could have, I think there's, oh, we don't have a stream in the other room. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Because I know Assange is going to know about this, and everybody, 1 minute. How important is Julian Assange and WikiLeaks? And I'll start with you, Anya, and go right up to Dennis.
Well, I would say my experience with WikiLeaks began during the Arab Spring, when we saw a massive protest movement in the country of Tunisia, which actually had some pretty damning WikiLeaks cables released concerning the State Department, where they spoke about the then leader Ben Ali as being a tool and doing whatever the United States wanted, and at the same time they were experiencing a real economic crisis in Tunisia. And as we know, the catalyst for what ended up being a revolution there was a fruit vendor who self-immolated on the street. But it was what WikiLeaks provided in terms of real State Department government documents saying what everybody knew was the case. And that's across the board. It wasn't just in Tunisia, but for the first time, I think journalists who'd been covering international politics had very real and relevant documents to inform their reporting about the world, and it can actually fuel revolution. And then, of course, what we know about the Iraq War, thanks to the Iraq war logs, and the way we've been able to see some crimes committed by our military with our own eyes, also has the power, I think, to hopefully move people to resist that kind of war in the future, though sometimes I feel a little bit disturbed about where the anti-war movement is or isn't. But I would just say I think what WikiLeaks did in releasing, and the same thing with the DNC emails. I mean, again, something everybody knew, that the Democratic Party had rigged the race in favor of Hillary Clinton, and we could be saying that now but not have the evidence. Well, we have the evidence now, and everybody knew it, but we can see them plotting this with our own eyes. So that's a very threatening thing to the establishment. That's why they want to silence WikiLeaks. That's why I personally believe they want to silence RT. But all we can do is hope that we keep that WikiLeaks stays strong and that we can continue to get that information.
Max?
Yeah, I second all that. I was watching the Post. This. Don't ask me why I was bored. I want to know what liberals think these days, and it isn't hard to find out. I mean, and I think there's some value in this Spielberg film about Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers. I mean, I have my criticisms too, but everybody celebrates Daniel Ellsberg today. Even in Washington, and obviously this film was released because of Russiagate, and that everyone wanted to think that it was the next Watergate. But it just got me thinking about the comparison between Assange and Ellsberg. What did Assange do that Ellsberg didn't do? Well, I mean, he didn't personally steal classified information. He basically exposed it, as any journalist would. But Assange is the demon of many of the people who went to see the Post and whose principal complaint about or fear about press freedom is that Donald Trump says mean things about the press. But many of these same people would like to have Julian Assange's head on a stake. And there's a lot of hypocrisy there. I personally don't agree with everything that Julian would say on his Twitter account. I'm not here to endorse everything Julian believes. I'm here to just simply say he is a journalist who's performed some extremely valuable tasks. He should be treated as a journalist, and it is pretty abundantly clear that the US has a secret indictment to extradite Julian Assange, that there is a campaign of psychological torture being enacted against Julian Assange to force him out of the Ecuadorian embassy in London so that he will be snatched and grabbed and taken, and as Adam Schiff, the Grand Inquisitor on the House Intelligence Committee said, be put into US custody, could be held under duress again, as Chelsea Manning was, put on trial, and he would be the first journalist, I think, the first journalist put on trial in US history for revealing classified documents. And that is a terrifying precedent that every journalist should stand up against, and it's just shocking to me and extremely tragic that the journalistic community has treated Assange as the CIA under Mike Pompeo has branded him as a hostile foreign intelligence agency rather than as a journalist, and that so many of Assange's former allies, his allies before the Trump era, came and scared everyone and freaked everyone out, have abandoned him. I, previously didn't speak that much about Assange, but now it's so obvious what's going on, and it's time to just simply stand up on principle.
A non-state hostile intelligence agency, Pompeo, called Julian that 13 days after the release of Vault 7 Part 3, which showed, to my satisfaction and to Bill Binney's, that it was not the Russians that hacked into DNC. It was John Brennan and his digital directorate that he set up. What do I say? Well, I remember about 7 years ago, CNN and everyone else was saying that Julian Assange was a terrorist. You remember that? He was a terrorist, right? And CNN had so many people on saying he was a terrorist that somebody said, you should have somebody who might say he's not a terrorist. So they asked McGovern. So he goes in there, and Don Lemon, Don Lemon. So he says, wait, you really think he's not a terrorist? You think he's a journalist? Really? Oh, come on. So it went down okay for my purposes, but of course I haven't been on CNN since. That was 7 years ago. They started out the segment, without telling me, with video from Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, shooting people up, terrorists and all that kind of stuff. So, collateral murder, when you see not only the brutalization of Iraqis, including journalists, but the brutalization of our own troops, that's hard to take. And many people have not seen that. I show it usually when I speak at colleges, and they've never even heard of it, okay? Now, I'll just say one more thing here. I guess it should be mentioned that the UN has twice said that Julian Assange should be walking free. That should mean something, but it doesn't anymore, and that's a symptom of how disregard for international law has taken hold. The worst intelligence analysis memorandum that I've ever seen was the January 6th memorandum, which said, we know that Putin, or we assessed that Putin directed the hacking and directed the interference in the election, and we assessed this and we assessed that. We also assessed this, but our assessment could be wrong, but that's the way we assess, okay? This is the one that was assessed with high confidence 12 days before Obama said what he said. We can't figure out how this hack got to WikiLeaks. Now, that's the President of the United States, okay? So what am I saying here? I'm saying that in that very document, in trying to explain why the Russian hackers, in quotes, would give this stuff to WikiLeaks, they gave Julian Assange an incredible left-hand compliment. They said because it never changes anything. People think it's authentic, think it's the real deal. That's why they chose to go to WikiLeaks. Well, hello, you know, that's where it is. And when I go on radio, when I'm asked, I always say, look, the distinctive thing here is that he's dealing in documents. He's dealing in the kind of evidence that intelligence analysts or journalists or investigative reporters lust after. Documents, okay? He doesn't change them. And the last thing I'll say on that is simply that when Hillary Clinton and her crew found out that Julian had, as he described them on June 12th, 2016, emails relating to Hillary Clinton, which were about to be published, that was about 6 weeks before the DNC, or before the Democratic National Convention, right? So you can see them sitting around the table. Oh my God, are they going to find, if they have the documents, they will show how we cheated Bernie out of the nomination. Like, this is awful, what can you do? And somebody says, well, you know what we do? We'll blame it on the Russians. So, Russians, it's not the Russians, it's Julian Assange. That's okay, we'll get a twofer here. We hate Julian Assange as much as the Russians. So we'll say that the Russians hacked and they gave it to Julian Assange. Everybody kind of sat around the table. Hillary says, anybody got a better idea? No. They went with it, okay? They went with it immediately. And when the convention took place, and I have this personally from Jennifer Palmieri, her PR person, she was instructed to go around and talk to everyone who would listen to her and talk about the Russians did it. And so when the emails came out from WikiLeaks, nobody paid any attention, the press or anybody else, to what was in the emails. Namely that Bernie had been tricked, had been cheated out of the Democratic nomination. Bernie knew it. And I don't know, man, I don't understand politics, but I would have liked to have him call for an open convention at that point. It was so clear. How did they avoid it? What I call, you know that novel Magnificent Obsession? Well, this was a magnificent diversion that got the whole media saying, why the Russians do it, why the Russians do it, why the Russians do it, and nobody took any cognizance of the fact that, that Bernie was cheated out of the nomination. So that's about as bad as it gets. Julian, as a journalist, does his job, do the things that were so well explained here by Dennis, to make people aware of what's going on at the centers of power. And then, of course, the media here, and that's the real fly in the ointment, have the ability to disregard it, suppress it, or, as in Vault 7, only report it very selectively.
Very good, Randy. Thank you. Go ahead.
So,
You want that for this?
thanks, Rick. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to repeat read a statement at the beginning of this workshop for those of you who weren't here, but I want to just repeat part of what John Pellinger says about. I want to repeat a little bit about what John Pellinger says about Assange Julian stands vindicated as one who has exposed a system that threatens humanity. The collateral damage video, the war logs of Afghanistan and Iraq, the Cablegate revelations, the Venezuelan revelations, the Podesta email revelations. These are just a few of the storms of raw truth that have blown through the capitals of rapacious power. Again, I agree with Max, you don't have to love anything anybody does, but if you look at the core of their work and the implications, the impact, you cannot deny that Julian Assange has become one of the most significant, shall we say, reporting publishers of our time. His work has helped to change history. And let me say it this way, it turns my freaking stomach when I watch reporters become prosecutors before the cameras. All of a sudden, they don't want to see these documents. They don't want to know this truth. He's anti-American. That's what Bob Perry was called when he was trying to report some of the stories he was reporting on Contra. This isn't, they told him, this isn't good for the country. Of course, Bob said, no, what you mean is this isn't good for the people in power.
Exactly.
Julian Assange was not good for the people in power.
That's right.
He questioned that old, abused phrase, but it means everything here. He questioned authority at all levels and did, in fact, speak up, spoke his truth to power all over the world. And he clearly is suffering. And you just have to look at the extraordinarily horrific treatment of Chelsea Manning. 7 years in virtual solitary to understand how bad Adam Schiff would love to see Julian Assange in cuffs. That is really up to us in terms of being able to prevent it. Speaking up, speaking out, as my good friend Randy Credico has done on Assange's behalf through his amazing series. You should get that series, but I don't think you can get it through BAI. It's pretty difficult. There are other ways to do it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. I don't like anything that Wolf Blitzer has to say, but I don't think he should be removed from television just because I don't agree with anything that he says editorially. And so that goes with a lot of people in journalism. I don't like Rachel Maddow. Do I think that she should be thrown off? No, and they can keep their station. I don't care. Just don't try to do that with people like
But
Max.
they should let us have a station
Let
too.
everybody hear. I mean, Anya at RT's a great, you watch RT, they do great reportage. They really do. They cover. I get people say, don't do RT. I did it 3 times in the last week, all right? Because I get stuck. I did Ari Melber's show, and he's so afraid I'm going to say something that they pre-tape me now. Everybody else is live. I was live, and he's like on eggshells. He's nervous because you don't know what I'm going to say. And so they cut out 2 minutes when they taped me. They pre-taped me last week, and they took out 2 minutes. So I won't do that show again unless it's live. They never pre-tape me at RT. Loud and Clear does, but they never do. That's the radio show. They always pre-tape me. But I do it live in the morning on the other show at 8 o'clock with Lee Stranahan, right? He does me live. But I get a lot of heat for doing those networks. But, Al Jazeera, BBC, the history of BBC, it's a government control. In World War I, they were there to promote the war, the British war against Russia, basically, against Germany. They were there to promote that war, right? That's why they were created. They didn't want people to see the horrors of that war. A lot of money was made off of that.
So, honey, we got some real bad blood. Never gonna take it back to school. Doesn't listen.